So before we actually get started with this video, let's quickly talk about the issue that we were getting in the previous lecture whenever we were working with Freshdesk API. So we were trying to deserialize our response for the Freshdesk tickets, and we were getting some error in the deserialization. So let me quickly talk about that, how to resolve that issue, and then we will proceed with our actual proceeding that we are going to do in this lecture. So if you have noticed here, we created an Apex class called Freshdesk ticket, and then we were trying to deserialize over here inside the method called list all tickets, and even inside the method that we created for creating the ticket, which says that create ticket. So we were getting the error. So what was the error? Let me quickly go through with that. So I have opened this admin booster tool where I have given this response for creating a ticket, and this is the class which is being generated by admin booster. So there is one thing that you need to take care and change the data type of that field, which is this. If you notice here, integer requester id, right? This requester id, the data type of that integer is requester id is integer, and the value is, it is saying that too long. So this data type should be changed to string. So as soon as you will change it to string, it is going to work and you will be able to deserialize that. And even here in this class, that is what I made the change here. I had two fields. One is requester ID, one is responder ID. Responder ID is the ID of the agent who is working with that ticket. So earlier it was integer. I will quickly show you here integer. Okay. I'm just making this as an integer here to show you how we are getting the error, and then we will just quickly convert those into the string format. So let's save our class. Yeah, it's done. Execute this method. Okay, so we have got this method over here, response from server here, and this time I'm going to print this not contacts, we are talking about list all tickets. Okay, so I have a debug over here on line number 119. I'm going to put the method, put the debug over here on line number 1 to 4. Okay, now let's quickly try to execute this method. Yeah, this is the method we wanted to execute, and it will open our debug, and we will see which debug we are getting and which one we are not getting. So if you see here, we are getting the error at the line number 178. 160 is we are getting the debug here. So if we scroll down over here, you can see, so we were getting the debug on line number 160, and then we were getting the error line number 168. So that is what we are getting on this line, right? Unfortunately, we put the debug on the wrong place. Now this time we will put the debug at the right place, and we will say okay. And before we execute, we will change this back to string form. Now after changing those, we will again try to execute this, and this time we will see our two debug logs. So let's wait for debug log to open, and now you can see here, this is 165 and 160, and we can see the data as well. And there is the fields which we don't have, we are getting the null, and the rest of the fields we are getting here, right, like requester id. And if we see here into our Apex class, we can see, right, the debug is 160 and 165. So this is for the tickets, and even for the contacts as well, you will be seeing that record id, the contact id, that should be converted from string to integer, sorry, from integer to string, because that id is too big. That's why we were getting the error. Now let's quickly talk about what we have for today. As we are working with QuickBooks, we did the necessary work that we need to do before integrating the QuickBooks to Salesforce. Now we are going to create a customer into QuickBooks. Then we are going to see how we can create an invoice related to that customer into the QuickBooks system, and we will also create a payment into the QuickBooks. So let's quickly start by creating a customer. So we already have the code here in this place inside QuickBooks util, as we already have gone through with some of the methods here. So I'm going to collapse those methods so that we can only talk about, yeah. So the first thing is that we need to create QuickBooks customer, right? So as we know that while sending the data to QuickBooks or any API, we first need to authorize that. And we are storing our details into the metadata called QuickBooks metadata. So what we did is we quickly made a SQL query and then fetched those data. And then here we said if QuickBook credential is not equal to null and the access token is blank, sometimes there might be a possibility we have created the record but we don't have the access token. That means we have not performed the step for getting the access token. If that is the case, return the code from here. Don't execute any other lines after that. If that is not the case, execute the rest of the lines. What we did, we store the access token into a variable called access token, and from where we are getting from the metadata. And then what we did is we call a method check token validity. We talked about this earlier as well. So check token validity, what it does is it basically checks. Let me open that method as well and show you. So you can see here what it is checking is, it is checking if the token is expired or not and returning us true or false. That is what we are saying here. We are saying if our token is not valid, that means that method is returning false. What we are doing is we are calling the method called refresh token, passing the instance of our metadata and then storing into the map, because that method refresh token method is returning a map and we already discussed about that. And then what we said is that now from that map get that access token, which is the recent one, and store into the same variable that we just created on line number 170. And then now here we are preparing the base URL, right? Before we prepare that base URL, let's quickly talk about this. So we have got this endpoint, right? If you notice here, whenever we were making any requests to QuickBooks, like creating a customer, you can see this is the complete URL that we were hitting. Let me copy this and paste this over here in the apps class. So this is the base URL, which is nothing, which is of our QuickBooks Sandbox instance. This is the resource that we are trying to fetch. Now you can see here we have got company. This is the relay ID, that is nothing our sandbox or production ID. And what resource we wanted to create is in a customer, and what is the API version. Now if we open our custom metadata, right, I will just quickly open that custom metadata record that we created. So here if you see, we have created a custom metadata record which is saying sandbox new, and we have these URLs, but these URLs doesn't have that complete fully qualified URL that we say, but we have two other fields. We say that sandbox based URL and production based URL, right? For the sandbox we are going to use sandbox, and for the production we are going to use production. And we also have one field called environment, which is going to tell us which QuickBooks environment we are integrating with. So here what we checked here is we said if environment is sandbox, give us the sandbox based URL. If environment is not sandbox, return the production based URL, right? That is what we have given here, and we got that either sandbox based URL, this one, or the production based URL that we have. Now as we wanted to create the customers, we did fetch the customer URL from the new field called create customer. We already have that URL. If you go to that field and click on that extension API names, and we will see that this is the create customer for creating the customer URL, which is going to return us from here. Not these parts are going to be neglected. We are not going to get that. We will get from here /v3. I'm going to zoom it. /v3 company relay ID customer minor version equal to. That is what we are going to get. Now here we have got that right into the new field called customer URL, the variable that we have created. Now what we did is we said that replace this relay ID, whatever the text, that this is the static text that we have given for all the fields. If you see, right, you can see for all the fields it has that, right? So what we said, replace this relay ID with the actual value for the relay ID that we have inside our metadata record. So if you see here inside our metadata record, we have got this relay ID and this is the sandbox ID. We are just replacing with this so that we can get actual URL over here like this, whatever we are preparing. And then what we did, we said that final endpoint is going to be endpoint, that means sandbox or production URL. Then customer URL, that means whatever we are trying to add that. And then we have this minor version, because at the end we have got this minor version. That is what we are going to send. We are going to tell this our HTTP request like this is the URL that we wanted to hit. That is what we have given over here. Now what we did is we have to prepare the customer body, because we need to send the customer URL, right? So what we will do is, let's quickly see. We already have that body over here in the Postman that we did. So this is kind of information that we need to send to QuickBooks. So what we need to do is, either we can prepare this kind of JSON in our FS class, or next thing what we can do is, that is what we have used. I will show you here how to generate JSON, right? That string. So you can just paste that JSON here, click on generate to Apex. You will see and scroll down, you will find your JSON over here, right? You can just copy this JSON and then you can paste it over here, and then you can replace all these values dynamically whatever you want. Extra what you can do is, you can just create this class, okay, copy all these variables whatever all you have till here, okay, and then create a new class. That is what I did. I did created a new class called QuickBooks Customer. That is what I have here. You can see I have every single information: fully qualified name, primary email address, display name, suffix, title, every single information that we need to send while creating this customer record. Now after creating that class, what we need to do is, we need to store the information into that class and then serialize that class. How it is happening is, if we have some string in form of JSON, we are deserializing, and which is giving us the object. Whatever the deserialization we are putting, either list of objects or class, a list of class, whatever we want. Now if we have an object which might be an FS class, which might be a custom object, which might be a standard object, we can serialize that, and that will give us an string in the form of JSON. So this method is basically accepting one parameter, which is QuickBooks customer type. QuickBooks customer is our FS class, and inside this class what I did is, now you can see I said customer dot fully qualified name. This is Anuj Singh. Now I'm going to change it to Ankit Singh, because we had to change the information, otherwise we will get the error for duplicate. So what we did, we said fully qualified name, and we can compare from here as well. Fully qualified name, this was King Groceries. Now we have changed Ankit Singh. Now if you see here for the email, it has primary email address, and under that it has address. So what we need to do is, we need to create the object of primary email address class, which is again sitting inside the QuickBooks customer. If you see here, QuickBooks customer have primary email address, which is again a class, and inside that class we have got that variable called address. So to refer that, how we can refer this? Class name dot variable. That is what we are saying here is, just create the instance of that class first, define all the variables, provide the value for all the variable which is residing inside that class. That is what we did. Now what we have is, inside this inside this email, we set that address. Now what actual variable we have? Primary email address. What we said, inside customer primary email address, put this object, the object of that class. Like that, what we said here, I can say Ankit Singh, creating the customer from Salesforce as part of demo. Okay, and again the same thing we did for phone. Again you can verify this. We have this phone, primary phone and free format number. That is what we have given over here, and then we said that company name is salesforce.com, and rest other information is optional. Like this, we have the multiple information like this. Those all are optionals, so we can leave those as of now. If you want to provide, this is the skeleton code that I have put over here, so that you can get it and you can use it for your purpose, because definitely you will be sending these information, those complete information for your customer. Now what we said, now we are serializing that information, that complete customer object, into a new variable called request body. And then what we did, we prepared an HTTP object, And then we called a method called prepare request, which is accepting 4 parameters. What is final endpoint, access token, what is the method, and what is body. And why we are using this method? So that we can reuse this method again and again, because we might have multiple objects which we wanted to send to QuickBooks. We can have multiple requests we wanted to send. So we cannot put the same piece of code again and again in every code, inside every method. So for that, we just used a new method here, prepare request, which is at the bottom. So you can see here, this is doing, again, it is just preparing a request, and the one thing that it is doing is it is saying that if body is not blank, then add the body, else don't add the body, so that we can take care about the get and post methods, all and other methods which accepts body or doesn't accept body. That is what we did in that method. And then next what we did is, again we did the same concept, try catch, and then if the response is either 201 or 200, then do the debug log. And again, one here you can see there is one more condition. What is that? We said that, remember we checked the validity of our token on top of our class? Yes. So we are saying that if the token is not valid, then again update the newly token information into the metadata. So I've recorded my previous lecture yesterday my time, which has been more than 1 hour, and I will show you that like this is now working. It is going to get the refresh token as well, and then it is going to make the call to the QuickBooks, and then it will update my metadata request as well. So for that, first I will show you over here. The modified time is 24/4/11 a.m. That why we are putting into the time, because there might be the time difference as well. And again I will just put this debug log over here so that I can show you, because sometimes you or people might think that it was already there. So I'll just show you this debug log by deleting all those, enabling the debug log for me, so that we can quickly see that. Okay, so let's quickly go ahead and enable that debug log for me. Okay, so before we go ahead, actually one more thing that we missed is we need to add the remote site setting for QuickBooks Sandbox environment. Yes, we did added one remote site setting earlier lecture, but that was for getting that access token, not for actually making the request. So let's quickly copy this. I already have added that, but yeah, that is necessary thing. You might not need to forget that. So I already have that. I'll just show you over here. You can see I have added QB Sandbox, which is QuickBooks Sandbox, and added that. If I don't add that, we will get that error, unauthorized request. I can show you that as well, because you need to know why we are adding that. Okay, so now what we will do is we will call this method create customer. Okay, so let's quickly say here we have QuickBooks util. We've got this QuickBooks util dot create customer. So it requires one instance of the QuickBooks customer class. So what we will do is we will quickly create a new instance and then pass that blank instance. That's it. And why we are passing, you will get to know that this reason before like at the end of this lecture. So let's quickly execute this. We already opening this debug log. And what will happen to the refresh token? That I will also tell you here. So you can see we got this error, unauthorized, and administrator must go to and this at this endpoint, right? This is what we have got. Now let's quickly see our debug log. So you can see there is only one debug log, and that is what we got the error. I'm going to delete this, and let's get back to our QuickBooks. Going to refresh that. It is not going to refresh our custom metadata for now. So if you will see that the time is again same 24:10. Okay, now what we will do is we will add that remote site setting, because that is mandatory. So we have got this QuickBooks Sandbox, and this is the one, the URL. Now I will do one thing. Again I will execute the same, and this time you will see that we will quickly get into the debug log, or you can also see over here as well. So I will show you the both the places. Okay, I'm going to refresh this. So this time you can see that we have got this debug log, and there is one more debug log saying queuable handler. Why this queuable handler is there? Because we are trying to deploy our metadata after making our actual API request. If you go here and if you click on debug log, you can see that we have got the customer, and if we scroll right, we should be able to see the customer ID. If not, we will check the debug log that we have turned on. So this is the debug log for us, and this is for deployment. So in the deployment, remember, we have some emojis for success and error deployment, so we can see those as well. So you can see here we have got this customer. This is the complete detail that we are getting, and ID is 65. Okay, I will show you this as well. Now after that, if we see here right into the, you can see here deploy result, and this is saying that success emoji, and we can get back to quickly our metadata, refresh this, and this time we will be getting the time which is a complete different time, 25:10 3:42 a.m. So now you can see that's how our refresh token method is also working, and which is working perfectly. There is no error. And now let's quickly see that customer there in our QuickBooks sandbox as well, so that we can see the customer has been created, and then we can perform the rest of the 2 calls that we intended for this lecture. In the meantime, it is being logged in. I will show you the next is we are going to create a payment related to that customer. So how you can create the payment? If you have that, you can have a look on that Postman. If not, I'm showing you over here in my screen. So you can see that for creating a payment, it is checking 2 parameters. One is the total number of amount, what amount we wanted to create for a payment, and customer reference, with respect to which customer we are creating that payment, right? So this is a very small body, a simple body. We don't need to create the class and all. We can quickly make the JSON of this body itself. Okay, so now let's quickly see here, go to the sandbox, and if you see here, that is what we did. We sent 2 parameters. One is amount, one is customer, with respect to which we wanted to get the payment. Again, queried the metadata record to check if that is valid or not, and then again did the same thing for token validity. If yes, then go ahead and do that refresh token and all. And then again, this is the similar kind of thing for preparing the endpoint URL, and this is where we are preparing our body. We have seen total amount and customer reference, right? Amount that we are getting, and customer reference, that the ID of our customer that we have just created. We can go to sandbox 1 because that is where we are playing around. Okay, so here we are inside customers, and we are going to change the ID to 65. That's it. Now we can see that we are there in 65. Ankit Singh that we just created as part of demo and all. There is no payment, there is no invoice, right? Now we have got this request body. Again did the same thing, prepared and all, and then this is again the similar kind of thing. So the request is again the similar, and the only thing which is different is the body. So this time we will call this method for creating the payment. So we are going to remove this because we don't need. Let's say payment, and I will say here some random number, not that big, and then I will say 65. That is our customer. So here we have got 65. Let's quickly execute it. Now we have got it. We are going to refresh this again here inside our QuickBooks sandbox, or the dashboards that we are weaving for that customer, to see if that payment has been created or not. Now we can see the type is payment, and whatever the payment that we have created, we got it. Let's quickly talk about the other third thing that we talked about, creating the invoice. Let's quickly see what sort of body it accepts for creating that invoice. So this is the body it accepts. Again, it has some sort of line items. Why? Because if you go to the market, you purchase some sort of things, and at the end when you ask for the invoice, you got the invoice where the shopkeeper has mentioned all those items like you have bought this item, this, and then total is this 100, right? Like that, we have to mention line item over here, and then we have to mention with which customer we wanted to create that invoice, right? That is what, again, this is going to be 65, our customer. And if you wanted to create more records, right, over here you can say you might wanted to create more record, and you can use those records. So we can try to use this as well. Before that, we will see what we have. So let's quickly generate the JSON for this. So yes, you want to create the class, purpose class for this, please go ahead and create that class and use that methodology that we did use for the customers. Okay, but we are not going to use that over here for now, so far basically. But yeah, that is a good practice if you wanted to use that. So again, Everything is similar what we did earlier for customers and payments. The only thing which is different is again the body that we sent as part of our demo while we were trying to test it with Postman. Similar thing is I have done over here. I'm just going to change the amount is 1080. That's it. Okay, we will try to test it and then we will try to send this body again. So now we have got this create invoice which is accepting no parameters. But yes, you want to make it dynamic, you have to send the parameters either through a wrapper class or with the help of variables. Now we have executed, it is executing. We are going to refresh our dashboard. As you can see here, now we can see the invoice and the number is 1043 and the amount is 1080 and it is paid. So whatever the invoice we are sending with the amount, we are getting that. Now let's try to change the ID of our, change the body of our invoice. Instead of request body, we are going to send this JSON and we'll see if we are able to create. Or we might get the error as well because I haven't tried. But if that is success, that's well and good. If not, we can try to debug that. So let's quickly execute this. So it is returning us the invoice here. That means we have got the success and we can refresh this and you can see that we have got one more invoice with the amount of $300. Why it is showing us $300? Because in our request body we have 3 line items, 100 of each. So that is how we can create the invoices and we can make the callouts to QuickBooks. There are many objects, many other objects you can refer to. One thing before I sign off, I will tell you here this item reference, right? Again, this is an object called item and this is the ID that we are passing over here as a line item, because every item have their own ID. So if you get to here, if you go to API reference document, and you can see this is the item. This item is actually associated with that invoice, and you can see here how we can create the item. So based on your business requirements, you can create those items or you can query those items. You can see here query an item. You can see here, you can just put the query over here. You can say max result, you can put 100, try it, and it is going to give you the success result. All the items you are going to get over here. So that is how either your business will tell you either you wanted to create those items or they are going to create those items in the QuickBooks and you are going to fetch those items. So before we go ahead, before we sign up for this, we have the assignment for you as well. There are 2 assignments related to QuickBooks. One is you have to create a new object inside Salesforce, label it as QuickBooks API, QuickBooks invoice, and the API name should be QB_invoice. So you have the link for getting all the fields as well. But you can go to API Explorer, find the invoice, and then go to the invoice object, and here are all the fields that you can get, you can create. If not, you can see all those fields from here as well and you can create those fields. But you don't need to worry about creating the objects because in the very initial of this course you have got that package and installed into your Salesforce to create all those required metadata, objects, and rest of the other things as well. And then what you need to do is you need to create a Lightning Web or Aura component which will take the input from the users to create the invoices into the QuickBooks system. So what you need to do is you need to use the same method that we have created over here for creating the invoices. Pass the information from your component and then create that invoice into the QuickBooks. If you got the success information, create that invoice into the Salesforce custom object as well. And this is how your component should look like. And here you can see you can hard code the customer associated with the invoice. That's what I have over here. And next invoice assignment 2 that we have is you have to create the another custom object which is QuickBooks payment. API name is QB_payment. Again, you can just refer that API document for getting all those field details. Again, create a similar kind of Lightning Web or Aura component. Take the input from the users and send that information to QuickBooks and Salesforce as well. And this is how your component should look like.